Hey guys, what's up? This is LJS here, and I'm back with another deck profile. Today's deck profile will be on the new Liberators, Prominence Glare. Yeah, which is this guy on this awesome playmat. So, Liberators have got new support again, and Liberators go Paladin, basically, as some of you know. Their playstyle involves top calling, basically calling from the top of the deck. But now the new Liberators of set 16 helps really improve Go Paladin's specialty of calling from the top of the deck. So instead of calling from the top card, now you're able to look at the top 3 or 4 of the deck, which helps improve consistency. And the main bosses, which is Glare and Core and Percival, will work off of this mechanic of calling from the top of the deck. Calling from the deck. So this is not my deck because I don't play Go Paladin, but this is my friend's deck. So this is sort of his and my take on this Liberator's new Legion deck. So yeah, so let's go with starter. So starter, we run this guy, Flaming Passion Liberator Guild Guide. Oh, also Liberators now have a really cool new look. The theme is around blue flames, which looks pretty awesome. The art looks nice, man. I may actually want to just skip this deck or not. Anyway, so yeah. So Flaming Passion Liberator Guide. So he basically his 5k base, and his skill is there because it helps you start chain calling. So now the new support from Liberators allow you to chain call. Basically you can call from a deck and activate that unit skill that you call and call from a deck again. So basically Go Paladin Liberators now have opportunity to swarm your field with cards, which I will go into later. But yeah, so I'll go through the card list first, and then the skills as well as discussion later on. But anyway, so yeah, so his skill basically allows you to put in a soul, look at top 3, and superior call a Go Paladin. Sorry, superior call a Liberator. So yeah, so that you run him. Next, grade 3s. First thing we run is 4 Prominence Core. Sorry, Prominence Glare. So Prominence Glare is like the upgraded version of Core, but strangely he's not a cross-right, but yeah. So his skill basically, whenever you can superior call from the deck, he gains a Glory Maelstrom effect with a critical. So he is a very good finisher for your opponent. So he's a sort of a late game card for his deck, and he's also Legion. So next we run 3 Prominence Core. So this is debatable. Some people would think Prominence Core is inferior compared to Glare, and they will actually prefer running Glare with Percival. But I think that Core is good for early game because he gains critical, and he encourages chain calling, whereas Glare, you wouldn't want to chain call with Glare because it's not worth it to chain call with Glare, which I'll explain later. But yeah, because Core skill requires you to superior call a same unit from in Vanguard cycle, which is him and Agrovel. So it encourages you to chain call to be able to superior call him or his mate. Because some people may argue that if you superior call him, you have less units to pay the cost. You have less card to pay the cost of Glare, which I'll explain later as well. But anyways, yeah, early game him, late game him. Next, run Percival, just 1 for fun, I guess, just for a backup, I guess. Because his skill allows you to, basically, he also helps you chain call, basically. Because when you're Legion, he can search top 4 and superior call a unit out. So for grade 2s, we have the Regulation Liberator Agrovel. So he's the mate, we run 4 because he's the mate of Glare. Yeah, there we go. And he is there because he is quite useful, number 1, because his main skill helps you search your deck for units with Bluish Flames. So all your Vanguard in this, all your grade 3 cards in this deck have Bluish Flame in each card name because you need Bluish Flames for Glare skill. So he also helps you fish your deck for Bluish Flames. So run for him because he's a mate and he helps you pull off Glare skill more often. Next, we run 4 Oath Liberator Agrovel, the original version of Agrovel. So he is a very, very, very good card for Liberators right now because when you call him, you're able to pull off your top calling skills, and he is also an important piece for chain calling early game. Yeah, so run 4 because he's also made of core, and the reason I also run core because it looks nice because you have the Legion rare. So yeah, another reason to run Legion rare. So 4 of him. Next we run 3 of the new Liberator Lawful Trumpeter because he allows you he basically allows you to get free calls. So basically on Legion you can start doing your top calls from the deck. When I say top call I mean calling from top of the deck. So yeah, that's what Gold Paladin is mainly about, top calling. Next we run 4 Perfect Guards, staple. Next we also run 4 Fast Chase Liberator Josephus because he allows you to get free draws, which is useful. Then we run May Rain Liberator Bruno because he pumps up 3k every time you call something from the deck, and this deck does that a lot, so you top call a lot. Therefore you run Bruno because he has potential to be 10k or more booster, which is quite good. I had a game where my friend actually pumped him up to 22k booster, which is insane. Next we run 2 10k attacker, little Liberator Maron. For triggers we run 4 5 6 7 8 crits, and 4 of the new Liberator stands because this card is actually really useful in this deck. So you want to run 4 of that because he also really helps you do chain calling, another key component of chain calling. And finally you have 4 heals. So now let's go into the skills of the cards. So Prominence Gilair, his skill is first skill is Performing Legion. Second skill is Counterblast 1 and discard a card with Bluish Flames in his card name. So his skill requires you to have Bluish Flame, and all of your grade 3 have Bluish Flame. So his name is Bluish Flame Liberator Prominence Glare. So yeah, so Counterblast 1 discard a Bluish Flame. When a unit is placed on R from your deck, if this card is in Legion, you may pay the cost. If you do, this guy gains 1 crit, and your opponent, during the battle that this guy attacks, your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater. So this is called a glory effect because the original Vanguard that has this skill is Glory Maelstrom. So Glory Maelstrom's skill is that your opponent cannot call grade 1 units. Okay, you cannot guard with grade 1 units from your hand if he attacks. But Glare is better because he also gains a critical. So he'll be swinging for 20k, 1 crit, and your opponent cannot guard with grade 1s or greater. They can only guard with grade 0s. So good luck with that. So he is useful as a finisher because late game, when your opponent's at 4 or 5 damage, chances are your opponent will have very little grade 0s. So if you swing 20k with boosters, let's say 27k with 2 criticals, and they cannot guard, they can only guard with grade 0s, chances are they'll just die. Second skill is, second skill helps him activate his first skill, his third skill helps him activate his second skill. First skill is Legion, but yeah. Third skill is Counterblast 1 and then retire a rear guard. You can search for top 4 cards of the deck and look for a Liberator in his card name and call it to R. And then you put the rest 3 at the bottom of the deck in any order. So his third skill is kind of like a Musketeer skill where you retire something. But yeah, so anyways, so late game, if you want to use his skill consistently, you need Counterblast 2. So Counterblast 1 for his third skill, which is to kill something, and Superior Call from top 4. Search the top of your deck. Okay, look at the top 4 cards of your deck and search for a Liberator and call it out. And then the rest goes at the bottom of the deck in any order. And then once that happens, you fulfill the condition of his second skill, Counterblast 1, discard a Bluish Flame, and he gains a crit and a glory effect. So yeah, pretty good finisher. Next is Core. That's why you use him as a late game. And the reason why he's not useful for chain calling is because you only need to superior call 1 unit to use his main skill, which is Counterblast 1 and discard to gain a crit. And if you chain call, you kind of waste the calling because when you call a unit from the deck, you want it such that to activate his second skill. And if you call so many units out in 1 turn, it's kind of wasteful for use this skill because his second skill ideally is every turn you conserve and every turn you just call 1 from the deck to use his skill consistently every turn. So having him early game is not to say very good because I mean he is good for pressure early game, but he's not good to do chain calling early game because you don't want to call too many from the deck, if you understand what I mean. Anyways, Prominence Core, he is good for early game. So his skill is, first skill is Legion, so he legions with the other Aglovel, the old Aglovel. And his second skill is, when this unit is, okay, when a unit with the same name as V is called from your deck, he gains 3k and 1 crit. So basically when he is in Legion, if you superior call a Prominence Core or a original Aglovel from your deck out, he gains 3k and 1 crit. So he gets a power boost. So he alone swings for 23k and 2 crit. If you boost with a 8k or 7k booster, he swings for, if you boost with a 10k Bruno booster, he is now going to be a 33k and 2 crit. So he is very good for early game to fish out your opponent's grade 0 guards. So at late game, they have no grade 0s to guard with Prominence Glare. And his skill encourages chain calling, because his skill requires you to superior call Core or an Aglovel from a deck. And you want to chain call because that improves the chances of calling him and him. Because if you chain call, let's say you call one and that guy's skill call another one, and guy's skill call another one, you have higher chances of calling one of those two from a deck. So basically, his skill synergizes with chain calling because number one, it improves chances of activating his skill. Number two, your field is full. So that's core skill. His third skill is the same as the Glare's third skill, counterblast 1, and then retire a rear guard. Then look at top 4 cards of the deck to search for a card with Liberator in its card name and call it to R. So the third skill also helps start chain calling or start super calling to be able to activate his second skill. Yeah. So next we have one Percival. So Percival's skill is when it performs Legion. So he also legions with Aglovel. This art is nicer there, Aglovel. And when he performs Legion, look at top 4 cards of the deck and superior call a unit out. So, and when he attacks the Vanguard, he gains 2k. So he is a sort of a backup early game grade 3. So he is there because he is a cheaper chain calling cost than Chorus 1, because Chorus 1 requires you to retire something and cost count plus 1. Whereas when he legions, he can superior call from the deck and perform your chain call as well to fill up your deck. Next is Destiny Aglovel. So his first skill is if you have a Vanguard with Bluish Flame in his card name, he is a 11k attacker. So he gains 2k, so he's 9k base with 2k. He swings for 11k if you have a Bluish Flame Vanguard. So he is only useful for Bluish Flame, and he really works well with Glare skill. His second skill is when this unit is placed on R from the deck, Soul Blast 1, look at the top 5 cards of the deck and search for a Bluish Flame in his card name and add it to your hand. So he helps you basically fulfill Glare skill, because if you superior call him, you can then use his skill Soul Blast 1 to search for Bluish Flames from the deck. And Soul Blasting is also good because there are cards that will be in your soul which you want in your deck, such as Bluish Flames. So if you Soul Blast them out and you perform Legion again, you can put them back in the deck, which is quite useful. So yeah, so run 4 because he's also the mate. Next, Aglovel, the MVP of the Glow Paladin. So when this unit is placed on R, you can counterblast 1 and then search the top 3 cards of your deck for a Liberator and superior call it to an open R. So he is very good as chain calling, because let's say if you superior call him with any of their skill, you can then use his skill to call another guy out. And then if that guy has a skill to call another guy out, you call another guy out, and so on and so forth. So yeah. Next is this guy. He's also useful to start a chain. So when your Vanguard performs Legion, you can look at top 3 cards of the deck, look for a Liberator and call it to an open R. And then you put the other 2 at the bottom of the deck in any order. So he is a free call when you Legion, which is so good. So perform Legion, chain call. If you chain call him, counterblast 1, chain call another guy, and so on and so forth. So chain calling can be insane in this deck. Okay, Fast Chase Liberator. If he is superior called from the deck, you can Soul Blast a Liberator, and if you do, draw a card. So now Go Paladin has a much more consistent way of pulling his skill off. In the past, Go Paladin only calls from a top card of the deck, and it's quite hard to get him. But Now with all this looking at top 3 or top 4, it's a lot easier to find him. And when you find him, he is a free draw. I mean, so good. Call, Soul Blast a Liberator, draw a card. Next is Bruno. When a unit is superior call from your deck, he gains 3k. And he is very useful early mid game when you chain call, because you can potentially chain call like 4 or 5 units and he gains 3k each time it happens, which is insane. So he can potentially be a 22, 25k booster, which is good, really good. Next is the 10k attacker for Liberator, so early game pressure. Basically just swing, when he attacks, if you have a Liberator Vanguard, he swings for 10k. Next is your new Liberator stand. He is also another key component in chain calling. So his skill is, when he is placed on the deck, when he is placed on the rearguard from the deck, you can pay the cost. You put him under the deck. If you do, search top 3 cards of the deck and call a Liberator out. And call a card not named him from a them and call it to open hour and shuffle your deck. So as you can see, there can be quite awesome chain calls that happens in his deck. So yeah, so then I'll now go on to an example of a chain call that can happen in this deck. Okay, so the key cards for chain calling will be these 3 cards, as well as your Vanguard to help pull off chain calling, or even your starter as well. So your starter works as well. So we have these things here. Okay, and these are the 2 cards that work. These are 3 cards that have skill that activates when you call from the deck. So let's just say your field is like this. Then you perform Legion. Legion, boom. Now his skill activates. So let's say, for example, his skill, so you search top 3, you find an Aglovel. Cool, good job. Call him out. His skill activates. He gains 3k and 1 crit because you called something from the top of the deck that is the same name as the Vanguard. Activate Aglovel skill. Chain call another guy. Counterblast 1. Counterblast 1. And chain call. Let's say you chain call this guy. You can use his skill again. Put him at the bottom of the deck. And then say you search top 3. You find, let's say you find this guy. Call him out. So plus 1, draw a card. So there you called 2 units out. Actually, essentially you called 3 units out, but the stand trigger goes back. So he gains 9k. So he's a 16k booster for this turn. Amazing, isn't it? And he gains his skill off, his pull off. Or let's just say, when you Legion, he chain call this guy out. And you have your starter. So that chain ends. Then you can use his skill in the soul. Let's say you call this guy out. Good, cool. Now you can chain call. Let's say you chain call this guy out. So yeah. So this deck, early game, you want to play him or Percival to help you chain call to get free units on the field, which is really good. And then late game, you want to finish your opponent off with Glare skill, because Glare doesn't really doesn't really support chain calling, whereas Core does, because it really helps you improve chances of getting one of them in the field. So let's say you Legion, chain call this guy, his skill go back in the deck, chain call, let's say you call out Aglovel, chain call out another Aglovel skill, Soul Blast, look top 5, you find a Liberator point, you find a Bluish Flame point in the hand. So this way is you are all set up ready for Glare. And when Glare comes, you can Legion, use his skill, and let's say by then your field should be full. Use his skill to kill something off, superior call something out, let's say you superior call him. Then use his skill to discard a Bluish Flame, and he gains the glory effect. So yeah, so this has been my deck profile. Basically, no, this is my friend's deck on the new Prominence, Glare, and Core deck. If you like it, thumbs up. If you like my content, subscribe, and hopefully you guys understand how this deck works. And this has been LJS. Thanks for watching.